Have you ever wondered what happened to the women who ruled the high seas when their luck finally ran out? The answer is a gauntlet of horrors designed not just to kill them, but to erase them completely. We all know names like Blackbeard, Captain Kidd, Calico Jack. But what about the women? The ones who defied every expectation of their time to stand shoulder to shoulder with the most feared buccaneers. Their stories, often shrouded in myth, are even more compelling, and their fates even more brutal. Join us as we pull back the curtain on the darkest side of the golden age of piracy. In this video, we'll uncover the horrifying historical records, the brutal methods of torture, and the chilling final acts that awaited these women. We're delving into the dark and often forgotten punishments that awaited captured female pirates, and how their gender, far from being a shield, often made their suffering unique, revealing a reality far more terrifying than any myth. The golden age of piracy, roughly from the 1650s to the 1730s, was a time of lawlessness on the high seas. For men, becoming a pirate was a desperate act of rebellion against the harsh conditions of naval life or indentured servitude. But for women, it was an act of unthinkable rebellion, a complete rejection of the societal cage they were born into. They were expected to be wives, mothers, and homemakers, never captains, never gunners, and certainly not outlaws. And for this double transgression, their punishments were a grim mirror of the society they had defied. While they faced the same brutal penalties as their male counterparts, the context of their gender added a layer of shaming and cruelty. Their crimes were not just against the law, but against the very idea of what a woman should be. Let's start with the most common and feared fate of all. For any pirate, male or female, the most likely outcome after capture was a date with the hangman's rope. Piracy was a capital offense. It was a crime against all nations, a threat to global commerce, and a direct challenge to the authority of kings and empires. The punishment was designed to be a final and definitive deterrent. In port cities like London, the execution of a pirate was a public spectacle, a morbid theatre performed for the masses. The condemned would be paraded through the streets on a cart, a final humiliation before their final breath. The most notorious of these sites was Execution Dock, located on the Thames River in London. Here the gallows were set up so the condemned would be swallowed by the tide, their bodies washed over by the very water that had been their domain. The hangings were often short drop hangings. Unlike a modern execution which is designed for a swift neck break, the goal here was not a quick death. The purpose was to cause a slow, agonizing death by strangulation. A prolonged struggle between life and death, visible for all to see. After death, the body of the pirate would sometimes be tarred. These cages were then hung from a post, often at a prominent point along the coastline, to serve as a gruesome and rotting warning to other would-be pirates. And this was the fate that awaited two of the most legendary female pirates in history, Bonny and Mary Read. Their story is the very epitome of this grim reality. Both were captured in 1720 after the capture of their captain, Calico Jack Rackham. They were tried in Jamaica, and a man named George Gade, who saw them at the trial, said they seemed to be very penitent. They were found guilty. Their sentence, as it was for all pirates, was to be carried from hence to the place from whence you came, and from thence to the place of execution, where you shall be hanged by the neck till you are dead. But here is where their gender came into play. With the noose literally staring them in the face, they each made a plea that was available only to women. They pleaded their bellies. They were pregnant. Under English law, it was considered a sin to execute an unborn child along with its mother. Their executions were granted a stay, a temporary reprieve from death. Mary Read, however, was not so lucky. She died in prison, likely from a fever or complications from childbirth, before she could be executed. As for Bonny, her fate is a complete mystery. She was spared the gallows, gave birth, but then she vanished from all historical records. She was a ghost of her former self, a legend that simply disappeared. Her story is a testament to the brutal realities of the law and the slim, gender-based chance of survival that it sometimes offered. For those who escaped the hangman's noose, a different kind of punishment awaited. A slow, living death through imprisonment or forced servitude. Prisons in the 17th and 18th centuries were not the correctional facilities we know today. They were cesspools of disease, neglect, and despair. They were designed to hold, not to rehabilitate, and for pirates, these places were their final resting grounds. Jails were notoriously overcrowded, with prisoners crammed into filthy cells. Water was scarce, sanitation was non-existent, and diseases like typhus, often called gaol fever, ran rampant. Many pirates who were imprisoned never made it to trial or to their execution. The prison itself was the punishment, a slow and agonizing decline into sickness and death. For others, the sentence was not a jail cell, but a ship bound for the unforgiving frontier of the colonies. This was the punishment of forced servitude or transportation. Convicts, including pirates, were sent to places like Virginia, Maryland, or later Australia, to work on plantations or as laborers. This was a long, arduous journey that many did not survive. The work was back-breaking, the conditions were brutal, and a sentence of servitude was often a death sentence by another name. While there are no famous female pirates who faced this punishment after being pirates, the threat was very real for women who committed other crimes. And for some who had escaped penal colonies to become pirates, this was their return journey, a constant reminder of the societal boundaries they had tried to escape. But what about punishments that were more personal, more intimate in their brutality? On the high seas, punishments for minor infractions were swift and severe. Flogging was a standard part of a pirate's life, whether they were a man or a woman. Flogging was a public spectacle, a way of inflicting pain and humiliation. The instrument of choice was often the cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip made of multiple knotted cords designed to tear the skin and leave permanent scars. It was not just about the pain, it was about the shame. A pirate's body was a canvas of their life, with scars telling tales of rebellion, punishment, and survival. Female pirates, despite their gender, were not spared this public and brutal form of discipline. While we lack specific records of famous female pirates being flogged, we know from naval and pirate accounts that such punishments were common. A woman who stole a ration of food or who defied a captain would have faced the same consequences as a man. The cruelty of the sea did not discriminate based on gender. And now we come to the most insidious and gender-specific of all punishments. While the noose was indiscriminate and the prison was an equal opportunity killer, the punishment of a female pirate was also about a moral failing. She had not only broken the law, she had broken the very fabric of society's expectations for her gender. This meant that she could be subjected to forms of public shaming that were specifically designed for unruly or transgressive women. One such device was the scold's bridle, or the branks. It was a metal mask, often fitted with a tongue plate, designed to prevent a woman from speaking. It was used on women who were deemed gossips or shrews, women who were too outspoken, too defiant. While there is no historical evidence that a pirate was subjected to this specific device, the spirit of it was everywhere. The very public nature of a female pirate's trial and execution was a form of scolding and shaming. It was a spectacle designed to show other women what happened when you stepped out of line. The focus of their trial was not just on their crimes of piracy, but on their unnatural deviance. A woman who could hold her own in a battle, who could use a pistol or a cutlass, was seen as an abomination. Her trial was a sermon on her moral decay, a condemnation not just of her actions, but of her very being. The public and brutal punishment was a lesson for all women: stay in your place or face a fate worse than death itself, the complete loss of your identity and your dignity. But let's end on a more hopeful, if rare, note. Not all female pirates were destined for the gallows. Some, through sheer power and cunning, were able to escape the grim fates that awaited them. One of the most incredible examples is that of Ching Shih, a woman who commanded the largest pirate fleet in history in the early 19th century in China. She was not a mere buccaneer, she was a true naval commander, a tactical genius who commanded a fleet of thousands of ships and over 80,000 pirates. The Chinese government and even the British and Portuguese navies were unable to defeat her. She was a force of nature, an unstoppable storm on the South China Sea. And so, they did the only thing they could do. They offered her a deal, a full pardon for her and all her followers. In a remarkable turn of events, she accepted. She negotiated her retirement, keeping her vast wealth, and lived out her days peacefully, running a gambling house. Her story is a powerful testament to the fact that power and success, regardless of gender, could sometimes trump the rules and punishments of the law. The stories of female pirates are not just tales of adventure and rebellion. They are a grim and fascinating look into a world where defying gender norms could be as dangerous as committing a crime. From the hangman's noose to the shaming public square, their punishments were a brutal reminder of the society they had defied. But in their defiance they became legends, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of those who chose to live free no matter the cost.